Hi, I am Laura, the founder of New Earth Practitioners. I'm here with Joseph Goforth. He is a sound healer and he does so much in our community here in Port Townsend. And we're going to have a conversation around intuition and how he's worked with intuition. Thank you for being here, Joseph. I appreciate it. What was the significant turning point for your intuition development in your life?
I appreciate that question because it's given me a lot to reflect on as far as what's brought me to this point right now and my understanding of intuition. I feel like it's always been there, and the turning point really for me has a lot to do with surrender, particularly in my journey with addiction and alcoholism in particular, and reaching a point of understanding that my thinking mind and the way that I was moving through life from the point of an ego-driven approach wasn't working. It was getting me into a lot of trouble and unnecessary suffering for myself and the people around me. So I reached a point of surrender that we could call an alcoholic bottom, changed the whole trajectory of my life and the way that I express myself in the world and the way that I connect with something greater than myself. I think that's like the starting off point for just accessing and listening to intuition.
Yeah, it sounds like from what I'm hearing is surrendering, moving out of how I like to say the hamster wheel. There's aspects I like about my intellect, but I really see it as a tool and to pick up at times, but it's not really effective in directing us in our highest good.
I agree.
Being able to learn deep listening, and I really like the term, I wouldn't have used that term, surrendering, that surrendering of the control of the mind, if that resonates true for you,
Yeah.
and the surrendering of the control of the mind and how it goes in these loop patterns and it makes up stories. And I was thinking about that this morning before you and I met about how we make up stories. And so many of these stories, there can be beautiful stories that we create, which is an interesting thing. Then there's other stories that we create, especially about ourselves or another person, that's fabricated. Allowing yourself to surrender opens up to that deep listening.
That idea of control in the mind. And when I consider that, the way I see it is like this thinking mind, like you said, it is a tool and it can be helpful. But that idea of control feels like an illusion to me. It's not even really a sense of control, like this belief or this illusion that I can think my way into a sense of controlling the outcome of any given situation, or that my clever thinking mind can get ahead, like even a split second ahead of the now moment, and give myself some sort of advantage or leg up. And it's ultimately taking me out of the present moment. And as far as accessing intuition, my understanding at this point is that I can only access it right now in the present. So if the mind is bringing me into a story, which is a lot of times based in the past, or it's bringing me into the future, which is a lot of times in the form of worrying or some sort of future scenario, then I'm not really present and I'm not really in this place where I can be receptive to what's coming from more of a sense of body, even the language we use, like a gut feeling, or my gut says no, or my gut says yes. That's quite a jump from up here in the mind.
There's so much confusion around what intuition is. And that's the purpose of New Earth practitioners, is to create language and acceptance, understanding of what that is, because the confusion, like what you were talking about, that thinking or that anxiety. So I like to say that what it's not, because people can relate to it, it's not your intellect and it's not your emotions. And the example I use is anxiety. When create this scenario of your anxiety is generally a lie built on something else that's not part of your intuition. There's a difference between what you're talking about, and I'm just teasing out a little bit what you said about when you have a gut sense. It's not anxiety. Like you said, it can be a real clear no, or a sense of stopping, or if it's a yes, it's a sense of flow. And that's what I call the sensing aspects of our intuition, the elements of sensing, which can be very accurate. And actually, we're able to access those quicker and more efficient than trying to figure things out or doing a list or a SWOT test.
It feels very different than thinking, because I'm sure many of us have been in that situation where, like a podcast interview, or we have to speak in front of other people, and we can prepare in whatever way feels appropriate, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I know for myself, I've been in situations where I've taken notes and I've tried to memorize, like, here's the perfect thing to say. And then in the moment when it's time to speak or deliver some sort of presentation, it never goes exactly the way I prepared. And whatever I memorized is usually right out the window. And I just have to speak from whatever's coming up in the moment anyway. So the way I see it, I might as well develop some sort of strategy for just trusting and surrendering once again, that I have within me everything I need to show up for the moment when the time comes, and just abandon all sorts of pre-packaged, memorized, witty, clever kind of delivery of something that's not as authentic as just that flow state that you're talking about. One of them, it comes from Albert Einstein. He said, we cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking that created them.
Yeah.
I draw from this concept of all that is. There's this reservoir of oneness. It's beyond duality, it's beyond my thinking mind and my stories and my belief systems. And that's really what I'm trying to tune into when I'm working with a client, or when I'm sitting in meditation, or when I'm just trying to get out of my own way. I think that's maybe the most simple way to say it, is my capacity of showing up for someone and holding space, or even for self-healing, or just getting out of this way of being that I produce my own anxiety. I
Right.
produce my own depression. It's all coming from some sort of belief system or thought process that is creating my own misery, basically. And so I need to surrender that and ask for help from something bigger than myself. And I feel like that's what Einstein was pointing to when he was quoted.
I don't know exactly what it's called, but it was like a movie about his life. And I felt like it was very accurate and it was so beautiful. He would get these visions before he did his work. He worked so much with his intuition. He saw it. He would get these downloads. And it wasn't like he sat there and thought. He would get the downloads and he would work out the formulas that he would see. He worked with his intuition all the time. He was very intuitive. And so he's a great example of how you can use your intuition and use that in various different ways, that it's not limited to only a certain way. And
It's like the thinking mind is there to write it down and translate it into language that can be discernible to other people. So it eventually benefits more than just the individual who's pulling it out from the ether or that source place that it's coming from where the visions are appearing. I've heard a really similar thing about Mozart. So many other visionary artists and inventors and creators that Mozart heard all of this music in full form and he would be like rapidly writing it all down. There's movies about Mozart and accounts of how he worked and how he brought this stuff into the world. And the lens I keep looking through understanding this with is that it's a matter of, once again, me stepping out of my own way, clearing out whatever blockages, gumming up the works to let this flow through rather than I'm the one coming up with it. So it simplifies things for me as far as the tool of the mind and what it is appropriate to be used for. And the human brain gets so much emphasis because it is very powerful. But I think a lot of times we're overtaxing it or applying it to problems or activities that it's not appropriate for. This other one that I wrote down, this is from David R. Hawkins, who is a physician, PhD, and I've been drawing so much inspiration from his work. He wrote a book called Power versus Force, along with so many other books. If you're not familiar with him, I definitely recommend
I
taking a look. He said, intuition is the capacity to instantly discern truth from falsehood.
mm,
It arises spontaneously in the silent field of consciousness when the personal self is transcended.
wow.
That's a mouthful, but it really lands for me. It helped me to relax into there's not so much I have to do. It's more an approach of just relaxing into that field of consciousness, which is what we are at the core anyway. And then below that, there's like the senses. The senses are helping me to interpret the world around me, but I'm not really the senses either. There's the mind beneath that layer. And then beneath that, there's just awareness and consciousness itself, bringing in the sense of identity and the sense of like where I'm approaching or trying to tap into as far as solving a problem, healing, or just feeling not so lost in this world of illusion and suffering, to reel it into that place of conscious awareness. And just even talking about it, I feel my body just like loosening up and relaxing, that I don't have to try so hard to be something that I'm not, or try so hard to be the problem solver. The problems dissolve into these challenges that I can approach from this playful, curious place. And
Oh,
that's
I
much
like
more
that.
approachable for me.
I like that concept of the challenges just melting away to these playful problems, melting away into these challenges instead of seeing them as bad. You can be playful, holding in a very different way. The other question I have, you're in that process of answering, what are you overcoming to become more comfortable with your intuition? And in particularly, I want to say in my relationship and communication with men, there's a different overcoming than women, and it's societal expectations and all that stuff. I don't see it necessarily in my belief systems that women are more, it just maybe on societal expectations. And so I'm curious, what are the things that you've had to overcome and whatever you're comfortable sharing, obviously?
Yeah, it's ego stuff. I feel just overcoming. It's like this need to be perceived in a certain way, perceived as being strong, or perceived as being the one who knows or who has it figured out, or perceived as being this, that, or the other thing. It comes back to that concept of getting out of my own way. Things like opinions and belief systems that I've held so dear without even realizing that's what I'm doing that caused me to be reactive, really. Softening into being able to say, I don't know, when I don't have an understanding of something, and softening into understanding when I have to make an amends or apologize for something, when I have been reactive. Noticing all the ways that I tighten up when I'm in pain and I'm suffering, when my own stories about who I am and my place in the world start to flare up. It's like the feeling of being a scared little kid or a threatened animal. That's a really primal sort of thing that arises up. And unless we really take the time to look at that and sit with it and examine it and have compassion for these parts of ourselves, they're gonna sabotage our lives. There's something that I heard a while back that's been really helpful. I think this came from Dr. James Hollis, who's a Jungian analyst. Something around there's that phrase, what I don't know won't hurt me, or what we don't know won't hurt us. But when it comes to knowing who we are and spiritual growth and self development, what we don't know runs our lives and leads into like shadow work and the willingness to look at all the parts of us that have been in our blind spots and to shine some light of conscious awareness on these spots. And to me is the source of humility. And it stems out of willingness to know how I can be more helpful in the world. And I
Right.
want to know how I can be less destructive in my behavior and my thought patterns. And I think that willingness leads to a sense of courage. Let me just see the good, the bad, and the ugly so I know where to start and what I need to work with. Sometimes the most helpful thing, which I think a lot of us avoid, I know am still working on this, is asking people that we know and trust, what is it about me that really bothers you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I imagine somebody asking me that, and a really special connection when we can be honest with each other and tender enough to answer that and to accept what comes back at us, because it will show us where we're reactive and where we're denying parts of ourselves that other people are probably really well aware of before we are.
Yeah. I'm sure you've heard of Gabor Mate. He talks about our authentic self and how our authentic selves, that part of us that's totally whole. We're not just fractured, broken beings. It's this uncovering of our authentic selves, how we also get in touch with our intuition. And he focuses on the gut, which is one aspect of intuition. It's a gift. It's also accepting the gift of that feedback. It's gifting someone when it's done in that way. I love that you brought that up because I think that allows the clearing away and the opening of the intuition, because the more you're open, you can see yourself, the more you're going to be able to see others.
If you can spot it, you've got it.
I
What
like
really
that.
bothers me about the people in my life, it's only bothering me because there's something in me that's resonating with it. It's this idea of sympathetic resonance.
Right.
If someone says to me something in an angry voice that's just not true, like they call me like you're a rotten apricot or something, I'll probably just laugh it off and it's not going to bother me so much because it's there's no real truth to it. But if they say something that really strikes a nerve, like you're a selfish person, there's something in there that is going to stir me up emotionally. Just to clarify too, it's like the point of this kind of work isn't for me to arrive at a place of shame or guilt. In fact, it's like looking at the challenges as gifts once again, like incorporated this into my regular the way that I pray is give thanks and appreciation. Thank you for all the gifts in my life, including all the challenges, which are just gifts wrapped in a disguise.
Yeah.
So when something is bothering me or something just feels like it's going very wrong in my life and it's causing me pain, this has been transformative is to just flip the script and recognize and appreciate, oh, this is coming into my life for a reason and it is a gift and I might not understand why. And it's showing me one of the ways that I'm being reactive and I'll go into autopilot. I'm given an opportunity to just sit with it and feel whatever is coming up in my body and just let it, just accept the sensation, accept the unpleasant feeling or the pain and be with it
Yeah.
because the pattern has been up until then that I've resisted it or rejected it or put it into the dark, put it into this, compartmentalized place within my psyche that's this is the pain box and I don't go in here. And it's banishing parts of myself. Over time, I found that like we will literally lose access to the sensations and parts of our bodies.
Yes.
And I think it's just a matter of time in this lifetime or another, we become ripe and willing to start examining these parts of ourselves and what's being reflected back to us in the world. This is the work that we're here to do. And so,
Right.
in that sense, it truly is a gift if I have the patience and the willingness to just unwrap that ugly present and see what's waiting for me on the other side.
Yeah. So true. And that touches on the aspect of oneself and how that can support a clearer intuition or maybe even more accurate intuition. It helps the intuition. And what is your perspective on that?
Yeah, I don't know if healing oneself or moving through our healing journey is necessarily a prerequisite to accessing intuition, but I, the way I see it, it definitely helps. It's like at my body, my psyche, myself as this vessel. And the more I can clear this vessel of all of the selfishness, really, one way to just define it. All of these blockages, the judgment, the guilt, the shame that get in the way of accessing intuition, the easier it is. Yeah, clearing out the blockages rather than becoming something more. I see healing not as like an adding or a becoming. Like you said before, when you were referring to Gabor Mate, this part of myself that is whole and healed
Right.
and just connected to the oneness and it's eternal.
Yep.
This is my perspective. So rather than adding or having to learn all of the techniques or get another certification, it makes way more sense to me to throw away all the debris or wreckage or things that cause me to come from taking a selfish place and just arrive or access that place of wholeness, of
Yeah.
completeness. And from
Yeah.
there, come from a place of giving
Yeah.
as much as possible.
I agree with you as far as the prerequisite isn't this idea that you have to heal yourself to have access to your intuition. I think of intuition like your senses. You have your sensing intuition, you have your hearing, the auditory, when people hear actual voices, not in here, but out here, or your clairvoyance when you see things. And then different things like your heart has an intuition, your different sensing the gut feelings. But there's an element of when you have a really high, loud emotional body, and usually that comes from a lot of pain or reactivity, is learning to calm that part of yourself so you can deep listen, so you can tune into that. Or a high, anxious mind that wants to be in charge and control. Brains are a survival tool that's part of our body, always looking for what's wrong to assess safety. So there's an element of our brain that's our amygdala, being able to calm those parts. And so sometimes that does require a level of healing and working either way, on the emotional side or the mind side. And sometimes for people, we have a tendency for these certain patterns. I agree with Gabor Mate, is that we have our authentic self. We have that, our soul, who we are. How I see it is that we're each a sovereign soul. We're that being that's not traumatized, but it's just like these stories and different things laid on, almost like pieces of cloth or whatever in my mind's eye. When you have suffered, it changes you. There's something about us when we've suffered that softens the edges. I guess that's what I want to say. It reminds me of an oyster. You have the little grit in the oyster, and it just irritates that. So it's just creating a pearl out of it. So pearls
We
in
certainly are.
creation. Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
had the time. We'll
Thank
have
you,
more
Laura,
of these.
and I look forward to another conversation. And I wish you the best with the rest of your day and the rest of your podcast journey as a host. You're a wonderful host, and thanks to everybody who's tuned in.
Thank you.